You're sitting in a meeting mid-sentence when someone talks over you as if you weren't even speaking. Your colleague takes credit for your idea and everyone nods along, forgetting you mentioned it first. Your friend makes that joke again, the one that isn't really a joke, and looks around the room for validation while you feel your stomach tighten. Disrespect comes in many forms. The cutting remark masked as concern, the dismissive wave of a hand, the conversation where your input is repeatedly ignored, the backhanded compliment that leaves you feeling smaller, the uninvited advice that assumes incompetence, the interruption that suggests your words hold less value. In these moments, our instinct screams to fight back, to raise our voice, to argue harder, to prove ourselves worthy of respect. Society often reinforces this instinct, telling us that standing up for ourselves means immediate visible resistance, that to be silent is to be weak, that to walk away is to surrender. But what if that conventional wisdom is not just wrong, but actively harmful to your peace of mind? What if you didn't argue back? What if you just stared? What if the most powerful response to disrespect isn't a response at all? Here's a truth most won't tell you. In the realm of personal dignity, less is often more. The person frantically defending their worth is already playing on their opponent's field, by their opponent's rules. The Stoic doesn't need to speak to be heard. The Stoic understands that true power isn't in the reaction. It's in the choice not to be moved. I've spent years studying both the philosophy of Stoicism and the psychology of respect. I've witnessed countless interactions where the quietest person in the room held the most power, not through intimidation or dominance, but through an unshakable sense of self that no external force could diminish. And I've seen how mastering these responses not only changes how others treat you, but transforms your entire relationship with conflict. The ancient wisdom for modern disrespect. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions or becoming a doormat. That misconception has kept many from discovering the true power of this philosophy. Stoicism is about mastery over the self, recognizing what you can and cannot control, then focusing your energy exclusively on the former. The opinions and behaviors of others, not under your control, your response, your boundaries, your inner dignity, entirely yours. When someone disrespects you, they expect you to play their game, to become defensive, emotional, or desperate for approval. This expectation is the trap. The moment you become reactive, you've surrendered your power. You're allowing someone else to dictate your emotional state, your behavior, even your self-perception. By choosing stillness, silence, and distance, you're not showing weakness. You're demonstrating command, not over others, but over yourself. And paradoxically, this self-mastery often results in greater influence over the interaction than any attempt at control ever could. These aren't tricks or manipulations. They're not social hacks or quick fixes. They're timeless tools that have guided everyone from Roman emperors to modern leaders through the chaos of human interaction. Tools that don't just change how others see you, they transform how you see yourself. Consider this not just a guide to handling disrespect, but an invitation to a new relationship with your own worth, one that no external validation can enhance and no external criticism can diminish. 1. Stillness is a statement. Last week, I watched a colleague present an idea in a department meeting. 3 sentences in, the VP interrupted her, explaining her own concept back to her incorrectly. Everyone expected her to scramble, to clarify nervously, to fight for her intellectual territory. Instead, she did something remarkable. She went completely still. She didn't fidget, didn't look down, didn't nervously laugh. She simply looked directly at him, face neutral, eyes steady. The silence stretched for 5 uncomfortable seconds. The VP's voice trailed off. He cleared his throat. "Sorry, Please continue with what you were saying. What happened here? By refusing to react as expected, she created a vacuum the interrupter had to fill. Her stillness acted as a mirror, reflecting the rudeness back to its source. Most people rush to fill silence because they fear what it might reveal. The Stoic understands that in stillness, power concentrates. Think about how rare true stillness is in our world. We're constantly in motion, speaking, texting, scrolling, reacting. When someone behaves in a way that would typically trigger a defensive response, the decision to become perfectly still creates a pattern interrupt. It's unexpected, magnetic, sometimes even unnerving. I've seen this dynamic play out countless times across different contexts. The boss who makes a dismissive comment and is met with stillness rather than the expected anxious agreement. The family member who makes a passive-aggressive dig at the dinner table only to be met with calm, steady eye contact. The stranger who cuts in line and turns to find not confrontation, but a composed, unwavering gaze. The psychological mechanism at work here is fascinating. When you respond to disrespect with stillness, you create what psychologists call cognitive dissonance in the other person. Their mental script called for you to react one way, but you've done something entirely different. This forces a momentary recalibration, and in that moment, the power dynamic shifts. When someone disrespects you, your immediate instinct may be to defend, explain, or counterattack. But these reactions often come from insecurity rather than strength. The still, steady gaze says more than 1,000 defensive words. I see what you're doing, and I'm choosing not to engage with it. This isn't about intimidation or creating discomfort for its own sake. It's about refusing to be moved from your center by external forces. It's about recognizing that your response to disrespect says more about you than the disrespect itself does. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." When someone tries to pull you into chaos, your stillness becomes your statement. When they expect reactivity, your composed presence becomes revolutionary. Practice this. Next time someone interrupts you or dismisses your idea, try becoming completely still. Don't rush to fill the silence. Don't fidget or look away. Just maintain neutral eye contact and allow the moment to breathe. Notice how quickly the other person becomes aware of their behavior when not distracted by your reaction. You don't need to react to reclaim your space. Sometimes you just need to stand firmly within it. 2. Silence is a boundary. Wow, I'm surprised you're still single. Must be that winning personality of yours. My friend Sarah heard this from a relative at a family gathering. Everyone waited for her laugh, her self-deprecating response, her attempt to explain away her singlehood. Instead, she said absolutely nothing. She didn't smile politely or change the subject. She let the comment hang in the air, creating a pocket of discomfort that the commenter had to sit in. After a moment of painful silence, her relative mumbled, "Just kidding, of course," and quickly found somewhere else to be. Silence is not passive. It's a deliberate choice to withdraw your energy from interactions that don't deserve it. When someone drops an insulting joke or backhanded compliment, silence transforms the moment from your problem to theirs. We've been conditioned to believe that silence in the face of disrespect means acceptance or weakness. Nothing could be further from the truth. Silence is often the most powerful boundary you can establish. A clear message that says, "I will not dignify that with a response." In psychological terms, silence functions as a social mirror. Without your nervous laughter or explanations to soften the blow, the disrespectful person is forced to confront the ugliness of their own words. Your silence creates a reflection they cannot escape. I've coached executives who were dealing with difficult board members, parents facing teenage defiance, and individuals managing challenging relationships. In countless scenarios, strategic silence accomplished what arguments never could. It shifted responsibility back to the source of the disrespect. Consider what happens when you respond to a passive-aggressive comment with silence. The commenter is left holding their own negativity. Without your engagement to distribute the emotional weight, they must either own their behavior or retreat from it. Either way, you've established that this type of interaction won't find purchase with you. The Stoic understands that you don't owe anyone a performance, not your discomfort, not your justification, not your forced smile. By refusing to perform, you reclaim the moment. This isn't about giving people the silent treatment as punishment. It's about recognizing which exchanges merit your participation and which don't. It's about understanding that every time you engage with disrespect on its own terms, you legitimize it. There's a particular strength required to sit in silence when every social convention calls for you to fill it. That strength communicates more about your boundaries than any verbal defense ever could. Practice this. The next time someone makes a disrespectful comment disguised as humor, don't laugh, don't explain, don't deflect with a change of subject. Simply allow silence to fill the space where your reaction would normally go. Notice how quickly the responsibility for the awkward moment returns to its creator. Silence doesn't let them win. It lets you stay free. 3. Stop explaining yourself. So you're really going through with quitting your job in this economy without a backup plan? Daniel had heard these questions for weeks after announcing his decision to leave his stable corporate position to start his own business. At first, he found himself launching into lengthy explanations, his research, his savings plan, his industry connections. Then he noticed something. The more he explained, the more people felt entitled to question his judgment. His explanations weren't being received as information, they were being treated as an invitation to debate his life choices. So he tried something different. When the next person questioned his decision, he simply said, "Yes, I'm excited about it," and offered nothing more. No justification, no evidence, no persuasion. The response was immediate and revealing. Some people seemed momentarily confused, then moved on. Others became visibly uncomfortable. They'd been denied the opportunity to pick apart his reasoning, but everyone got the message. His decision wasn't up for committee review. The compulsion to explain ourselves often comes from a hidden belief that we need others' approval to validate our choices. The Stoic recognizes this as an external dependence that weakens our resolve and clouds our judgment. I've observed this pattern repeatedly in my research on confidence and decision-making. The most respected leaders and the most centered individuals share this quality. They state their decisions clearly, without feeling compelled to justify them to every questioner. This doesn't mean never explaining your reasoning. In collaborative environments, sharing your thought process can be valuable. But there's a crucial difference between choosing to share your reasoning and feeling obligated to defend it. The need to explain often reveals where we lack confidence. Pay attention to when you feel that urgent need to justify yourself. Those moments are signposts pointing to areas where you might be seeking external validation rather than trusting your own judgment. When you stop over-explaining, several things happen. First, you reclaim tremendous amounts of mental and emotional energy. The effort of constantly justifying your choices is exhausting in ways we often don't recognize until we stop. Second, you communicate a quiet confidence that paradoxically tends to reduce questioning over time. People intuitively sense when someone is secure in their decisions. Third, you break the pattern of seeking validation from sources that cannot ultimately provide it. No amount of external approval can substitute for internal conviction. Seneca put it clearly, "He who is brave is free." There's a particular kind of bravery in standing by your decisions without feeling compelled to defend them. Practice this. Identify one area of your life where you habitually over-explain your choices. Perhaps it's your career path, your parenting decisions, your health routines, or your creative pursuits. The next time someone questions you about this area, respond with a simple, factual statement and resist the urge to elaborate unless asked directly. Your life isn't a public debate. Your choices don't require a consensus. The quiet confidence of the unexplained decision often commands more respect than the most articulate justification. 4. Distance is a form of wisdom. For years, Alex maintained a friendship with someone who subtly criticized everything from his career choices to his parenting. After each interaction, he felt drained, second-guessing himself. He kept engaging out of a sense of loyalty and the guilt that comes with the thought of giving up on a relationship. Then he read a line from Epictetus: "The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." Alex realized he'd been measuring relationship success by endurance rather than value. Slowly, he began creating distance, not dramatically ending the friendship, but gradually reducing access. Fewer calls returned, briefer conversations, less personal information shared. The result, more energy for relationships that actually nurtured him, and a surprising discovery. The critical friend barely noticed the change. The relationship had been maintained more by Alex's guilt than by mutual benefit. Distance isn't about punishment or revenge. It's about resource allocation. Your time, attention, and emotional energy are finite resources, perhaps your most precious. The Stoic understands that allowing these resources to be drained by disrespectful relationships isn't nobility, it's poor stewardship. In my counseling work, I've seen countless individuals trapped in this cycle, enduring chronically disrespectful relationships because they believe that setting boundaries makes them unkind or selfish. They confuse tolerance with virtue, not realizing that indiscriminate tolerance often enables destructive patterns. Creating distance requires no announcement, no confrontation, no dramatic exit. It's simply a gradual recalibration of how much access someone has to your life. It's the decision not to immediately return the text from someone who consistently leaves you feeling diminished. It's declining the invitation to events where you know your boundaries will be crossed. It's sharing less personal information with those who have demonstrated they cannot be trusted with it. This approach is particularly valuable in situations where direct confrontation would be unproductive or impossible, with certain family members, ex-partners who co-parent with you, or colleagues you cannot avoid entirely. Guilt is the trap that keeps many people in draining relationships. We mistake distance for cruelty when often it's simply wisdom. We fear being seen as unforgiving or cold, not realizing that forgiveness doesn't require continued exposure to harm. The Stoic perspective offers a powerful reframe. Creating distance isn't about punishing others. It's about honoring your responsibility to protect your own well-being. It's about recognizing that you cannot pour from an empty cup, and some interactions consistently empty your cup. Practice this. Identify one relationship in your life that consistently leaves you feeling drained, diminished, or disrespected. Consider one small way you might create more distance, perhaps taking longer to respond to messages, sharing less personal information, or limiting the duration of interactions. Notice how this affects your energy and mental clarity. Some people deserve less access, not more explanations. Attempt to hold your head high. During a team presentation, James was challenged aggressively by a colleague in front of everyone. The questioner's tone was dismissive, clearly designed to undermine both James and his project. In that moment, James had a choice. He could shrink physically to match his momentary internal doubt, or he could embody his own worth. He chose the latter. He straightened his posture, maintained eye contact, and spoke with measured confidence. Not louder, not faster, just steadier. He didn't match the aggression or become defensive. He simply occupied his space fully while addressing the question with dignity. After the meeting, several people commented not on the challenge, but on James's composure. His physical presence had communicated more than his words. Body language isn't just what you communicate to others, it's what you tell yourself. Research shows that expansive, upright postures actually change your hormonal balance, decreasing stress hormones and increasing those associated with confidence. Amy Cuddy's research at Harvard demonstrated that just 2 minutes in a power pose can significantly alter your testosterone and cortisol levels, affecting how you think, feel, and behave. The Stoic recognizes that dignity isn't just an internal state. It's a physical practice. How you carry yourself through moments of disrespect shapes both how others perceive you and how you experience your own power. I've worked with clients who transformed not just how others responded to them, but how they felt internally, simply by changing how they physically occupied space during challenging interactions. The consultant who stopped hunching when presenting controversial findings, the woman who stopped crossing her arms defensively when receiving criticism, the teacher who stopped backing up when challenged by aggressive parents. In moments of disrespect, our bodies often betray us before our words do. We physically contract, shoulders rounding, gaze lowering, voice quieting. These involuntary responses are partly evolutionary, preparing for physical threat, and partly conditioned, reflecting past experiences of shame or submission. By consciously choosing to maintain open, upright posture in these moments, you're not just influencing others' perceptions, you're literally changing your own physiological response to stress. You're interrupting the automatic circuit that runs from perceived disrespect to physical diminishment. This isn't about intimidation or dominance. It's about refusing to physically manifest the diminishment that disrespect attempts to inflict. It's a quiet declaration. Your opinion of me is interesting, but not definitive. The practice begins with awareness. Notice how your body responds to different types of interactions. Do you physically shrink when certain people speak to you? Do you avoid eye contact when expressing unpopular opinions? Does your voice become softer or higher when you feel dismissed? These physical patterns often operate below conscious awareness until we deliberately attend to them. Once recognized, they can be gradually reshaped. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Be like the promontory against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it." Practice this. Before entering a situation where you anticipate potential disrespect, take a moment to set your physical intention. Roll your shoulders back and down, lengthen your spine. Take a full breath that expands your chest. When the challenging moment arrives, maintain this physical dignity regardless of your internal response. Notice how this physical choice influences both the interaction and your own emotional experience of it. Don't shrink, rise quietly. The inner shift. These 5 responses, stillness, silence, refusing to explain, creating distance and physical dignity, might appear on the surface to be merely tactical, but look deeper and you'll see they all spring from the same source. The recognition that your worth is not determined by external validation. This is the fundamental shift that the Stoic philosophy offers, from external to internal metrics of value, from seeking approval to living with integrity, from reactivity to sovereignty. The disrespected person reacts because they feel their value is under attack and must be defended. The Stoic responds, or doesn't, from the understanding that true worth cannot be given or taken away by another's opinion or behavior. Consider for a moment how revolutionary this perspective is in our culture of likes, shares, and constant performance. We're surrounded by messages suggesting that our value is determined by others' assessment, by our social media engagement, our professional recognition, our relationship status, our peer approval. The person who has made this inner shift doesn't need to announce it. It becomes evident in how they move through conflict. They don't fight for respect because they're not locating their worth in others' perceptions. They respond to disrespect with composure, not because they're suppressing their authentic reaction, but because they genuinely aren't moved by what doesn't matter. This isn't just about what you do when disrespected. It's about who you are becoming, someone who derives their sense of value from within rather than without. Someone who doesn't need to convince others of their worth because they're already convinced of it themselves. The 5 tools aren't reactions. They're refusals to be moved from your center. Inner command is the highest form of power. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It's cultivated through consistent practice, through the small choices made in moments of challenge. Each time you choose stillness over reactivity, silence over defensiveness, boundaries over explanation, you're not just managing a specific interaction, you're rewiring your relationship with your own worth. The realization dawns, I've been reacting, now I choose. And with this choice comes a profound peace, not the peace of isolation or indifference, but the peace of alignment with your deepest values regardless of external circumstances. The strength of dignity. We live in a world where disrespect is common, where attention is currency and outrage is the easiest way to acquire it, where social media rewards the loudest voice, not the wisest one, where conflict is entertainment and restraint is often mistaken for weakness. In this environment, dignity becomes rare and therefore remarkable. The person who can stand in the storm of disrespect without being uprooted demonstrates a strength that mere aggression can never match. This strength doesn't shout for acknowledgement. It doesn't need to. True power never does. I've witnessed this quiet power in people across all walks of life. The elementary school teacher who maintained her dignity while an angry parent shouted at her. The customer service representative who remained composed in the face of a customer's contempt. The artist who continued creating meaningful work despite scathing reviews. The leader who responded to public criticism with thoughtful reflection rather than defensive reaction. These individuals weren't passive. They weren't doormats. They simply understood what truly matters and what doesn't. They recognized that in most cases of disrespect, the disrespectful behavior reveals more about its source than its target. Not every provocation deserves your energy. Not every insult requires your defense. Not every criticism merits your concern. The Stoic doesn't lower himself to be understood. He elevates himself to be untouchable, not through arrogance or detachment, but through the quiet certainty of self-knowledge. When you no longer need others to affirm your worth, you become free in a way that few experience. Your peace is no longer hostage to the opinions and behaviors of others. Your dignity is no longer negotiable. This doesn't mean you never stand up against genuine injustice or speak truth to power. The Stoics were not passive in the face of true moral wrongs, but they understood the critical difference between responding to meaningful challenges and reacting to personal slights. Dignity is not the absence of strength, it is strength of the highest order. It's the strength to remain true to your values regardless of provocation, to stay centered when others attempt to pull you off balance, to to choose your responses rather than have them chosen for you by others' actions. This is the path of the modern Stoic, not withdrawal from the world, but engagement with it on your own terms, not suppression of emotion, but mastery over reaction, not indifference to others, but independence from their judgment. Your practice begins now. The philosophy we've explored isn't theoretical. It's practical. It's meant to be lived, tested, and refined through direct experience. The true test of any philosophy is not how elegant it sounds, but how effectively it serves you in your most challenging moments. Who drains you the most, without even raising their voice? What conversations leave you feeling smaller, even when no obvious insult was delivered? What would change if, just once, you responded with one of these 5 Stoic approaches instead of your habitual reaction? How might your life transform if you stopped defending your peace and just lived it? This week, I challenge you to choose one moment of potential conflict and apply just one of these responses. Notice not just how the other person reacts, but how you feel in your body. Notice the energy you conserve by not engaging in the expected way. Notice the subtle shift in power that occurs when you refuse to be moved from your center. Start small. A single moment of chosen stillness can create ripples that eventually transform the entire landscape of your relationships. Remember that mastery comes through practice, not perfection. There will be times when you react rather than respond, when you're pulled off balance by someone's disrespect. The Stoic doesn't expect perfection, only progress. Each time you choose dignity over defensiveness, sovereignty over reactivity, you strengthen the neural pathways that make this choice more accessible in the future. You're not just changing how others see you, you're changing how you see yourself. The journey toward unshakable dignity is perhaps the most worthwhile journey we can undertake. It leads not just to more peaceful interactions with others, but to a more peaceful relationship with ourselves. You don't need to fight to be respected. You need to stand still and watch how the world adjusts.